All right. Who here has struggled with communication in the real estate business, particularly across generations? You can raise your hand just so I know everybody's listening. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. What I'm going to do, guys, I have a handout for y'all, and I'm going to ask everybody to be a little bit vulnerable today. I'm not going to ask you exactly how old you are, but I am going to ask you to stand up based on when you were born. Can you just take one and pass it? That would be probably a lot easier than me passing them out. I left a little space on this for you guys to write if you would like to take notes on this. And on the back, we're going to go through some do's and don'ts when it comes down to communication, which we'll review towards the end. Okay? All right. Who here can give me a definition of coachability? What does it mean to be coachable? Anybody? Any takers?
Willing to listen.
Willing to listen. Great.
Ability to learn something new.
Ability to learn something new. Good. Mike?
Willingness to change.
Willingness to change. Love it. Who else? Let's give one more.
Being able to accept constructive criticism.
Being able to accept constructive criticism. Fantastic. All of these things we're going to talk about today. And all of those are great definitions, by the way. Here's one that I heard a long time ago that still rings true with me today, and here's how I would define coachability. It's the willingness to learn and the ability to implement. It's the willingness to learn and the ability to implement. So we're going to go through some learning stuff first, and full disclosure, this is stuff that I just learned yesterday with a quick Google search on generations, but I'd love to talk through this as we go. So for starters, is there anybody in here who was born between 1901 and 1927? Oh, thank goodness. Okay. This is the greatest generation. If you want to write in there, born between 1901 and 1927. Just for, this is interesting to you. This generation lived through the Great Depression and then went off to fight in World War II. Notably, they popularized jazz and swing music, but don't be fooled by the wild provocations of the cultural preferences of the times. Due to the current events of this generation, the challenge of raising a family put a premium on traits like hard work and grit. Maybe that's why they call it the greatest generation. Can you raise your hand if you were born between 1928 and 1945? Young crew in here. See, that's a pretty good thing. This is the silent generation, okay? The reason they got their name the silent generation is for being so conformist that they were silent through the McCarthy era when the fear of communism swept the country. All right, the next one. I know we have baby boomers in here. If you were born between 1946, maybe we don't, and 1964. Two of them. All right, round of applause for baby boomers in here. All right. Do you guys have a good definition for what the baby boomer generation is? Either of our two baby boomers. How would you define it?
Silent.
Old.
Yeah, besides that.
This is the sentence that I read.
No, we won the war, and the roots of that are the baby boomers.
That is a positive spin on it. I love that. Here's the sentence that I read. Gen Z may think of baby boomers as their out-of-touch grandparents. As in, okay, boomer. But this generation actually had a wild youth we often don't talk about. Interestingly, the baby boomers started the concept of having family meetings. Thought that was kind of interesting. All right. If you were born between 1965 and 1980, please stand up. Yeah, way to go. Good job, guys. This is Generation X. Adrian, I'd love to hear your take on Generation X. This is 1965 through 1980.
I think we're super well equipped because we've seen the most change out of everybody. We've lived through the rotary phones, and now we have a computer in our pocket. So I think we have if you do it right, you have the ability to communicate across generations easier than some of the other people.
Master communicator. Fantastic. Who else? Let's hear your take on Generation X from someone born during 1965 and 1980. Dawn, do you have anything to share? Nothing? Rodney? Mike?
I would say we're the tweeners.
The tweeners?
Not very IT oriented.
Not very IT oriented. It's probably one of the challenges when we talk about the communication gap, right? Here's what, I don't even know how to cite this, guys, but all of it sounds true so far. So often dismissed as the slacker generation, Generation X lived through the AIDS epidemic, the MTV culture, and a shifting landscape that would give rise to LGBTQ, BTQ plus rights. Generation X parents were the first to use helicopter parenting styles. Can anybody, hi Jake. Can anybody tell me what a helicopter parenting style is? And Myra, you were just raising your hand.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Helicopter parent.
What does that mean?
It means that we need to know exactly where our kids are at all times and what they're doing and who they're talking to and why they're doing it.
You're very serious about that. That's right. That is perfect. I love that. That's fantastic. Unlike their boomer parents, who famously let their kids stay outside until the street lights came on, Gen Xers tend to be far more involved with their children's social and educational development. Kind of interesting. All right. Now, I would like you to raise your hand or stand up and give us all a round of applause. If you were born between 1981 and 1996, stand up, raise your hand. Let's go. What generation is this? Millennials. Fantastic. Justin, what do you love most about the millennial generation?
They expect things for nothing.
Expect what?
Most of them expect things for nothing. Entitled.
Entitled. Entitled?
I consider myself a Gen X even though I was born in '82.
No, not according to this fancy website.
There's some of that.
Yeah. There's a Generation Y, Justin. That's what we're in.
Okay.
This one,
Ys or X's.
yeah, this says millennial generation or Generation Y. So maybe you guys are those tweeners
Well, every generation there's this kind of like cushion.
who like you refuse to be called a millennial, so you're going to call yourself a Generation Y.
Both.
Right.
You're down the line. So yeah.
Other than entitlement, what are some of the negative connotations of the millennial generation?
The failure to launch is the
Failure to launch. Very good. Okay. What are some, there's a lot of, raise your hand again if you're a millennial. What do you think's great about being in the millennial generation?
High computer skills.
High computer skills? Who else?
I was going to say perfect blend of actually socializing and like IT skills.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Perfect blend. Yeah. That's how I think about it too.
As only
A millennial would say. As an entitled millennial would say, a perfect blend. Question for you guys that relates to communication. What are some of the most common communication gaps we see between the millennial generation, or Gen Y, and what was the other one that the most other you guys are part of? Generation X. What are some of these communication gaps? What do you run into?
call versus text,
Call versus text. Simple one.
voicemails versus no voicemails,
Okay, very good. Who else?
early start versus late start.
Like time of day? Okay. I would agree that's probably a pretty fair statement.
I'm generally going to want to do things faster than an older person that I'm working with.
For,
A little bit slower with it.
okay, when does quality come into question with that? Or does it not? Do you think that as a millennial, we lose quality when we're trying to move faster?
In some cases, I mean, I think there's some cases when you do need to slow down a little bit, but sometimes you don't really need to slow down.
Okay. As a millennial, for the millennials in this room, what are some challenges you have with Gen X or the baby boomers?
Well, I think kind of in the same vein, there's more expectation of face-to-face. Maybe with X, certainly with baby boom. So in terms of communication, they're going to be more in person.
Okay, good. If you were born between 1997 and 2010, can you raise your hand? Oh, goodness, holy shit. Okay.
You're not gonna make them stand.
Yeah, can y'all stand up, please? I know it's a little embarrassing. Like, all right. Yeah, way to go. Good job. Okay. All right. Gen Z kids are the first to be born into a world where they know nothing besides constant connection to one another, albeit through phones, screens, and tablets. They are extremely politically aware, despite many of them not being of voting age. It's kind of interesting. All right, can I get a Gen Z to participate and tell me that, let's use Sklar, I'll point to you. When were you born?
98.
90, oh, so you're fresh Gen Z. What are some struggles you see communicating with millennials or Gen Xers? Older than you, people older than you. How about that?
What are my struggles with communicating with people older than me? I would
Yes.
say, I don't know, I feel like I've learned a lot from Mike in the old way. So, it's kind of
Hold on, pause. Mike, do you have a rebuttal?
probably like no texting. I can't text them. I gotta call them. I gotta get face to face. Kind of like what Zach said, it moves a little bit slower through the process. Where if I work with like first-time home buyers who are my age, it's like firing off texts back and forth, solving problems a lot quicker.
Okay, very good. Any other, I can't remember all these. Gen Zers, also known as iGen, by the way, like the lowercase I, like for iPhone and iPad and that kind of stuff. You're also very environmentally conscious. Did you know that about yourself? You are. Any other Gen Zers? Mike, not a Gen Zer, but go.
Response from the Gen Xers is lots of Gen Zers are creating lots of problems with lots of text and partial transactions that Gen Xers have to solve and fix on the phone later.
Yeah.
So that's the other perspective.
Okay. I would agree with that perspective. You were in the Beard. You were in the iGen. You're in the iGen, right? What's your perspective on your generation?
I think a lot.
I'm sorry. What's your name? Alex.
I think a lot
Beard.
of us are lazy.
Lazy?
Afraid to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that, but I would also agree there's a lot of lazy millennials and Gen Xers. I think there's a lot of lazy people everywhere. Yeah. Anybody else? I'll give you guys a couple more. No one here is 2010 to 2024. Generation Alpha, first generation of kids who will never know a time when social media didn't exist. And then if you have a son or daughter born this year, they're Generation Beta, and there's not many positive things to say about that generation. So, good luck. All right, guys, here's what I'd like to do. Real quick again, and I would like you to stand up for this. If you were Baby Boomer or Gen X, can you please stand up? I would love it if you guys could kind of like gather in that back corner. That would be awesome. Just find a seat in that back corner. The next group, I want to get all the millennials, I think is the largest contingent we have here, right? Millennials, if you guys could take over kind of like maybe the front left over here, that'd be great. Okay? And then Gen Z right here. That would be great. All right, here is what I would love for you guys to do to start. I want you to communicate amongst yourselves, all right? This is called a breakout session, okay? 2 questions I want you to answer. The first is, what is your competitive advantage as a group? What do you believe your competitive advantage is, okay? And the second one is, what do you believe your disadvantage is? What's your competitive advantage and what's your disadvantage? Let's take 3 to 4 minutes. If you guys could kind of collaborate on this, that would be fantastic. I'm sure that group back there will probably be the best at it. Yeah? And we'll come back, we'll reconvene, we'll take some notes. So go ahead, guys, let's get to that. All right, guys, let's bring it back together here. I'm going to call, hi. No offense, but you can sit back there. So mean. Gosh. All right, I'd like a spokesperson or 2 for each group, please. We'll start with the iGenders, and the first thing I heard was Molly say that the iGenders are not afraid to break the mold. So whoever wants to present from iGen, that'd be great. Go ahead, break the ice for us.
Or the mold.
What did y'all talk about? Competitive advantage.
They're scared to speak out loud.
Speaking up speaks
Can they
very
text it?
loudly.
Say that again.
Speaking up speaks very loudly.
Okay. Can you explain that? No, you can't? Yeah.
I can. I think we have a
Thank you,
huge
Lindsay.
advantage as far as like people skills because our generation is very used to if you're uncomfortable in a situation, you just hide behind a screen, behind your phone or anything, instead of learning how to communicate.
So you think that's the disadvantage you said? Okay, yeah, good point.
I would say the advantages were more, I don't want to say susceptible, that's not really the word I'm looking for, but we're more like crafted to trying to find different strategies from the old principles of life to try to make them better. Like, you always hear people saying, like, you need to save up for your one house, and then when that's paid for, then go look to buy investment property. I feel like people our age are like, how about we just live with our parents, go do a couple spec houses, go develop some property, and then we'll go build whatever we want. It's almost like the old school principle, like real estate builds and whatnot. We take those principles, but we modernize them to make it like, let's jump 20 years ahead. Like kind of Jake was saying, you want to get rich quick, but sometimes it's a little better ways.
Generally speaking, would you describe the iGen as having a willingness to learn?
A lot.
Yeah.
What about ability to implement? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Any other final notes on iGen that you guys want to share that y'all discussed?
Technology. Where
Yeah.
in that sense, that
Hell yeah.
You'd be a lot more comfortable FaceTiming versus some other people.
Having me stare at you.
Yeah.
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 Okay, very good. Let's move back to the baby boomers and the Gen Xers. Competitive advantage and your disadvantages. Plural.
As our advantage, we said we're more experienced, meaning we've lived more life, so we've seen more people, dealt with more situations. We think that makes us more adaptable. We think we have better follow through. We're better researchers because we lived before Google. We also have high self-esteem, as you can tell.
Sure, no doubt. No doubt, no doubt.
Disadvantage, challenge, or poor IT skills. We can be resistant to change and stop
Can be.
communicating. We can be overthinkers. And this is just for me. I have poor hearing and can't understand the rumbling I generation.
What? Very good.
Excuse me? Repeat that?
You guys notice how efficient the baby boomers and Gen X are back there. That's fantastic. Thank you. Round of applause for the people in the back. That's great. Thank you. All right, millennials, who's our spokesperson? Blakely.
Disadvantages would be we possibly have a reckless digital footprint.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Do you guys... Blakely said that we have a reckless digital footprint.
Since we were kind of like at the beginning of the whole social media.
Yeah.
We were at that age where we would do reckless.
Right. You ever go back and look at like your Facebook memories when it first started? That's embarrassing.
We also may be, risk adverse because we lived through 2008.
Risk averse? That's a good point. Yeah. Good.
I think one of the advantages we have are we're able to communicate face to face and electronically.
Yeah.
Because the whole electronic communication kind of came about as we were going through school.
Sure. Absolutely.
That was the biggest thing.
I know there's too many advantages to discuss from the millennial generation, but do you guys have anything else to add from your discussion? Anybody? Anything else come to mind?
I'm just gonna say I had a reckless
Speeding ticket.
pop up from a client yesterday from college. So
Then I would say the thing that's maybe I think interesting in our clumping is like the development of like the iPhone and social media. For our generation that could have hit when we were in 6th grade or a college senior.
Yeah. Very different.
Like if you lump all millennials in, I feel like there's gonna have to be a different.
That's what you're saying, like kind of on the fringe of it. Yeah. I'm with you. I get it. All right, guys. Here's what I'd love to do next. Try to be methodical with this. From the back left corner, I'd like 2 of you guys, because that's a smaller group, 2 of you guys to come up with the millennials, please. So 2 of you guys plan to come up here. 2 of you guys come with the iGen group, okay? From the millennials, 5 of you guys go to the back left. 4 of you come here. From the iGen, 3 back there and 3 right here. 3 stay. The idea here, guys, is to get a mix. That's the reason. I tried to make numbers somewhat work. You want a beanbag? That's what you should have done. Should have got beanbag chairs for the iGen. Dim the lights a little bit. Put waterfall in the background. All right, guys, here's the next breakout topic, okay? What I'm looking for from these groups, and the idea here is that we have a mix of generations in these groups. I'm looking for do's and don'ts of communication, the consistencies, the things that you should be doing when you're communicating with somebody from really anybody, to be honest with you, but from a different generation specifically, and the things you shouldn't be doing. And you can take that however you want it. You can word it as a do or a don't, but I'm looking for some consistencies that can help us communicate more effectively. Talk about that with your group, please. We'll give it another 5 or 10 minutes. We'll discuss, and we'll go eat cheeseburgers. So I think everybody really... Hey, yo! Does anybody in here have children that... Does anybody in here have children that do watch the movie Frozen or Frozen 2? Okay, what about Frozen 2? Familiar with Frozen 2? Some of you? Okay. So there's this song in Frozen 2, and it's called, the name of the song is Some Things Never Change. And here's a couple of lines from it. I'm not going to sing it. It says, should I sing it? It says, like an old stone wall that'll never fall, some things are always true, some things never change. And it goes on to talk about this, they use the phrase certain certainties. Certain certainties, right? So that's what we're looking for here. Like, no matter what generation you're in, no matter who you're communicating with, what are the certain certainties? What are the things that we should always be doing? What are the things that we shouldn't be doing when trying to effectively communicate? So with that said, it doesn't matter. Whoever wants to speak up from your discussions, please share. Okay.
The younger generations tend to just call and not.
A lot of judgment in the voice back there.
Message. When communicating, lead with an introduction. Tell them who you are and what company you're with. Don't use slang or abbreviation in text messages or emails. Again, don't call multiple times if they're not answering. There's a reason, and also don't send multiple texts, and be careful with text and email communication because tone does get lost in that, and that's when it's more important to pick up the phone.
That's a great point.
And so you're clear with your communication.
It's an awesome point. Would everybody agree with those things? Anybody have any objections to it, comments? Okay, anybody else from this group back here? Anything else you guys want to share that y'all discussed? Any funny jokes? Cole, you got anything? No?
I have a random tangent, though.
Yeah, hit us.
Potentially by like a show of hands, does anybody have any unlistened to voicemails on their phone right now? Like, not that just happened like the last 30 minutes, but like you have a banner on your phone for unlistened voicemails? Mike, that would make sense. All right. More for my own marital disputes.
That'll be the first class in July. All right, let's go to this group. What are some certain certainties, some do's and don'ts when communicating with others?
We said you should be consistent with matching the format of communication.
Do be consistent. Okay, good.
And you may have to change that, we realize, based on circumstances, but like set the expectation or the permission if you're going to suddenly change.
I think, you said that, right? Right at the beginning, you said adapt. Right? That's what you're saying here, right? You be willing to adapt and set the expectation. Yeah, good.
And we said proofread.
Proofread?
Before you hit send. Phone calls are best. The don'ts, we didn't really reach a real consensus, but we said don't text bad news or avoid by using the text. That means a phone call.
Does everybody agree with that? Yes, I think that's a certain certainty. Don't text bad news.
And then we have some pet peeves. Like,
let's hear the pet peeves, please.
For a quicker response text.
Does anybody have that on their voicemail? Yeah. Yeah, for a quicker response text.
Overuse
All that says is I don't give a shit about you. That's what it means.
Also means I'm showing houses. Very busy and professional.
It's very nice, Adrian.
Other people didn't like it if you texted, "Can I call you?" They were like, "Just call." So I think we just like more directness is maybe the consensus there.
Okay, good.
Do y'all think anything else that I didn't write
Yeah,
down?
Blakely had a good one. He said you're not gonna build a relationship through text.
Yeah, would you guys agree with that? It's a pretty fair statement. Yeah, not going to build a relationship through text. Okay, let's go to this group. Anything different that y'all discuss or that you'd like to expand on? Did y'all talk about anything?
I mean, I think it's not as much as the generation, like certain generations like to be communicated with certain ways. I think that everyone has a certain way that they prefer communication. So like what Sarah said, like maybe when you go meet with them, like ask them up front, like, hey, like do you prefer call, text, email, like what's gonna be the best way, what hours of the day are you most available? Just be very upfront on how they want you to communicate with them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's really guys, that's my main point for today to convey is that yes, it's important to understand the generations. And honestly, it's kind of fun to learn about. But in the end, like I don't know how everybody wants to communicate. And so we have to be able to set that expectation up front. Like people are all going to communicate differently. You know, like maybe you have a preconceived notion going into it, what you think. But in the end, we've got to be able to adapt. We've got to be able to set the expectation. I have a couple of do's and don'ts that I came up with before the class I'm going to share with you guys. But is there anything else that you guys would like to share before we wrap this thing up? Okay, no, go ahead, please. We're good.
I was just gonna say, especially with people with young children, it is really just easier for them to text a lot of the times because they've got crazy kids going on in the background. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, good.
I was thinking mostly about dealing with our own clients, but maybe dealing with other real estate agents. I know one big advantage Dean has when he negotiates a contract, he's calling people because that's a big strength that he has, and he can win or intimidate or whatever he does. But use your strength. You know?
No doubt. Understand and use your strengths. Yeah. Great. Yes.
I think a voice now that the market's changed a little bit, or even if it hasn't before, if you're talking to the other side, you've got a better chance of doing a better job for your clients.
Yes. Exactly right.
I'll say even though I'm born in 2003, I got a lot of old school like styles to me. So in a sense, I may not be the full-on Generation Z, but a lot of people may look at me and just say, "Hey, let me text them." I still like to call. So I mean, don't assume a certain person born in a certain year always needs what you think a text or whatever.
I very much agree. That's actually the very first don't that I wrote down is don't assume people do something a certain way. Don't assume it. Like the second we start assuming, really in business, period, guys, when you assume things, you're already behind the eight ball. Don't assume. This is a no stone unturned type of business, right? Second don't I have is don't fight against nature. And I got this from, I'm a big Jocko fan. So Jocko wrote this one of his books. He said, I can't change the group if I am not in the group. Don't be over-aggressive. Don't alienate yourself. Become a part of it and earn your influence. Thought that was kind of cool. Don't fight against nature. So if someone is refusing to communicate with you a certain way, that really goes into being able to adapt, right? The third and final don't that I came up with was don't blame others for miscommunication, even if you have virtually no control over the situation. This can be really difficult, but guys, like sales and leadership are one and the same. You're leading other people. And the second you start blaming a mishap on somebody else, you're in the wrong. You've got to figure out a way to take ownership of these certain things. So I wrote down a couple of tips. Be friendly, take ownership, be professional, be thorough, and be kind, right? Be kind. For do, here's what I wrote down. Do ask how other people would prefer to be communicated with, especially with a new relationship. Ask how they'd like to be communicated with. I know for me, and those who work with me know this about me, I love a calendar. My wife knows this about me too. I love a calendar invite because to me that like brings everybody together. But I've run into many situations where I'll send a calendar invite and just assume everybody's on the same page and they show up late or don't go to the right place, even though it was in the freaking calendar. You know what I mean? So instead of me just assuming that, I should ask how they like to be communicated with. And at the same time, something else I can take ownership of is I should still be confirming those appointments in advance, right? Do adapt. And then finally, I wrote this, and I would love it, or I would appreciate if someone has a disagreement on this, please share it. I'm a big believer in this, and I think most of you guys are too. but I'd like to hear if anybody disagrees. The last do I wrote is do prioritize communication at the table. At the table. And that's just another phrase for face-to-face, right? I got this from a book that's actually called The New Generation Leader. It's a really short book, pretty interesting. It goes through different generations and how to lead through them and those types of things. In a word, leadership is influence, right? It's influence. Sometimes that can be negative, but leadership is influence, okay? So this guy, this author, his name's Aaron Lee, he says, influence comes to life at the table. He says, for far too long, we've overlooked the people-oriented relational factors in the workplace. Yet it is precisely those factors that influence human behavior. When we build influence around the work table, we can invest relational capital in the people we lead. While they are not members of our family or part of our inner circle, they are essential members of our lives. Our investment in them can reap benefits far beyond clocking in and clocking out. With such a strong influence, new generation leaders will tap into the real reason team members perform at work. It's kind of like finding the motivation of a client, right? Relational connections breed influence far more effectively than we can accomplish any other way. And one place it can always happen is around the table. Does anybody here disagree with anything in that? So can we all agree that prioritizing communication, especially important communication, should be in person, at a table, no matter what generation you're from or no matter how you prefer to communicate back and forth, right? At the table, face to face with somebody. This is how you influence other people. We can't influence behind a screen. We can't influence. Should you adapt and become more effective in certain forms of communication? Absolutely. I haven't found a way, and if you guys have, please share. I haven't found a way to be more effective than I can be in person, no matter what else is going on. Honestly, maybe this puts me in the previous back left group. That is an old school fundamental that I just don't think is going away, and I think it's actually become the secret sauce. Yes? Okay. Anybody have any additional comments, questions, concerns? Thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it.